shining in my soul. Now
Hi, so this is Candice again with another OIA radio show, and today we're here with Ella Henderson, who works with Project Wisdom. Welcome to our show, Ella.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
I know that you discussed gaining strategies for working with non-English speaking clients through interpreters or translators, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. That workshop we provided in partnership with Translation and Interpretation Program Services, TIPS, which is through Immigrant Services. So actually, Mary Lou Emberg, who is coordinating TIPS, offered that workshop. So it's not my area of expertise. But what she dealt with in that workshop, and I actually went to the workshop so that I could learn what she had to teach as well. It was a fabulous workshop. We did lots of really hands-on practice with working with an interpreter. In terms of the strategies to access interpreters, that was a lot of education that she did about how the service system works in Guelph and some history about how translation and interpretation services are sort of evolving and changing. In many cases, getting an interpreter, especially when you're dealing with a medical situation or a care situation, an emergency, you need an interpreter really fast. You need whoever's there right now, okay, let's go. And so one of the values of this workshop was trying to educate service providers about why using a family member really isn't appropriate, how to access services quickly, what are that professional accredited interpreters have developed, been trained, been tested on very finely honed skills to be able to do their job well. Whereas someone who happens to work in the same building, who happens to speak Spanish, doesn't have that. So part of the education of that workshop was, why do you need an accredited interpreter? How do you get one? And if you can't get one, here are some things that you should know about how interpretation works and really what you're asking of the person. It seems sort of straightforward to think, oh, well, you just repeat what the other person said, but in different language. But then you're dealing with expressions, idioms, different words. The subtle nuances in the meaning of words are different. If I could go back to elder abuse for a second, as a good example of that, elder abuse is a term that many English speakers aren't familiar with. And it's really a term that's kind of developed in English. And so if you're trying to talk to someone in another language about elder abuse, A, that term may not exist, so you have to develop a whole sentence or two to describe what it is. And B, research, international research that has compared different countries, different cultures, shows that people associate the word abuse with different things. Which is not to say that hitting someone isn't considered abuse in lots of different places, but it does mean that people are willing to use the word abuse in different cases. So one interesting finding was that the word abuse may be reserved for physical assault, hitting someone, whereas in the elder abuse literature, the service system here, abuse refers to financial abuse, using someone's money in a way that they haven't approved of or don't understand, emotional abuse, calling them names, neglect, sexual abuse, which includes just inappropriate sexual comments that make them feel uncomfortable so it's, if I go back to translation now, interpretation, someone who just happens to speak Spanish isn't going to be able to handle an interpretation situation as professionally as a professional interpreter, basically. So that workshop was excellent in terms of raising service provider awareness of the complexity of interpretation, the difference between translation and interpretation, the fact that if you need an interpreter, you need to say, I need an interpreter, which means you need someone to translate the spoken word. If you call up and say, I need a translator for a meeting, that's going to be confusing because translation refers to translating written things. So in terms of the language that a service provider needs to use to make sure they get what they need, was something else.
So, yes, I do agree that a family member should not be used as an interpreter when dealing with elder abuse situations, because they may not represent their family member's point of view. They may be trying to hide, the situation that their family member has found themselves in. However, I wondered how an interpreter who has that cultural background, they may also not understand elder abuse, and how would they be able to represent that to someone, a service provider who, needs to know that, elder abuse is occurring within the family?
Okay, so there are several different things I want to respond to that question. The first is that, yes, a family member acting as an interpreter could very well be sort of hiding something. If we're talking about an abusive situation where the family is abusing the senior, or wants to hide something about what's happening. In a sort of less sinister example, in, say, a medical appointment, a senior, it's embarrassing to be in a doctor's appointment and have to have your daughter-in-law there while the doctor examines you in your sort of paper-thin robe. And family members can be squeamish about saying what the doctor's really saying. One example that it sticks with me is an elderly gentleman whose doctor said, you need to have a colonoscopy. This guy did not speak English, and I think it was his daughter-in-law, doesn't matter, family member, for the sake of argument, was interpreting and explained to the gentleman that he had to have a test. Nothing else. So this guy goes to the hospital for his appointment not knowing what's going to happen to him. There's a fairly big difference between a colonoscopy and just some kind of test. So there's a good example of a non-abuse situation where having a professional interpreter could have avoided that problem. The other thing is that the interpreters, while we are working in Guelph to have sort of sector-specific training for interpreters, where they would have training on, say, medical language or particular language that is relevant to serving, say, women in crisis who deal with abuse situations. So there is very specialized languages in those fields, and interpreters, I don't know what the status is of the training because, as I said, it's not my particular area, but I do know that there's movement towards providing that sector-specific training. Having said that, there's often a confusion around what the interpreter's role is. So a service provider will often look to the interpreter to give some kind of cultural information about, okay, so why did they say that? Okay, so what do they mean by that? Or, so in this culture, does that mean this? And that's not, while it would be really convenient for the service provider to be able to have that conversation with someone who speaks English, that's not the interpreter's role. The interpreter's role is to just repeat in the target language what the service provider said, and in the other language what the client or service receiver said. So in that case, while it would be fabulous to have interpreters who are also crisis workers or nurses or whatever, who have that specialized technical knowledge, their role isn't to sort of give supplementary information. Their role is to just translate, interpret what's being said. So the service provider's role is to ask the questions to get the information from the person they're trying to work with. And the interpreter's role is to just tell the service provider what the person is saying. And if the service provider needs clarification, they need to ask the person they're trying to give help to for clarification rather than the interpreter. So I think I've probably strayed from your original question, but the region that the interpreter is from may be slightly useful or relevant, but if they're doing their job professionally, it's a kind of peripheral to their role, if that makes sense.
Totally does. I think that, from your answers, you've mentioned a lot that Guelph has been, or the city of Guelph has been working towards in order to improve services for diverse communities here in Guelph. And I wondered maybe you can touch on some of the other ways that you could see Guelph or different services improving on the way that they deal with diverse communities here.
Sure. I can't speak totally broadly because my area is seniors. I do know that in Guelph there are lots of initiatives going on. There's a lot of excellent awareness of the need to make Guelph and Wellington County and everywhere more welcoming to newcomers, more to sort of take advantage of the richness of different cultures and allow people to contribute their uniqueness to make everywhere a better place. I mean, that sounds sort of vapid, but I really believe it. So things like the Local Immigration Partnership they have loads of excellent actions that they're trying to work on in terms of economic inclusion, social and civic inclusion. So that's really a hopeful thing for me. I think that's a really positive thing. As I said, the need for access to interpretation and translation services is there. There are sort of small offerings of translation interpretation services. I know, for example, the Guelph Community Health Centre is able to provide interpretation for their clients, which is fabulous in terms of that necessary medical communication. I know Women in Crisis is able to guarantee interpretation for the people who access their services, which is such a needed service, and it's wonderful that they're able to provide that. In terms of what's needed, I have to go back to seniors. So what we learned from the focus groups is, ethnocultural communities in Guelph are small. They lack often spaces for seniors to get together and hang out. I mean, it sounds simple, but if you can bring people together, if you can create a space where seniors can talk to their peers, can speak in their own language, you've created a situation where you're reducing isolation, you're improving social connection, you're also creating a place where service providers can go, where information can be provided to those people. It's a lot easier to give a presentation to a group with interpreters than it is to try to find people individually, and it's more effective to give a presentation to a group where then people will talk amongst themselves, they'll tell their friends who weren't able to come. That's way more effective than producing a pamphlet that goes out, people see it, maybe they read it, maybe they don't. So in terms of where I see a need in terms of senior services, I see that as the next step, and what we are hoping could be in the future in Guelph, creating sort of nurturing a group of senior volunteers who are from diverse communities, who can sort of be the bridge between the service system and their communities, can be kind of mobilizers within their communities, and then we would provide support to them in terms of resources, a space, a little bit of money maybe for like cookies or outings. I mean, how fabulous would it be to be able to have a bus trip or a card group or something like that, because we know that isolation is a major risk factor for abuse, depression, family tensions. So it's a simple thing, but it goes such a long way. And I know that places like in Guelph, the Evergreen Senior Centre and the Guelph Wellington Seniors Association, they have these fabulous peer helper programs. They have these fabulous visiting programs. They have these fabulous activities, but there's for some reason a barrier where non-English speakers or people from diverse communities, sort of non-Caucasian European background people, aren't accessing that, and those services aren't available in other languages besides English. And there's a recognition of that, and I know that the Evergreen Centre and the GWSA are really interested in broadening, in welcoming more people. So there's work to be done to sort of bridge between existing services and then setting up things that can be kind of a comfort zone. So you're not the only Pashto-speaking senior walking into a place that's full of English speakers, and you're trying to build relationships. So that's where I see a need for seniors in Guelph.
So I do agree with what you have to say, and I believe that, the city of Guelph and county of Wellington can play a role in bringing that community of seniors together. So you've been working on this project for a while, and I know that you had focus groups, and you have the last one coming up sometime?
No, actually, the focus groups are finished. The workshops, we are working on scheduling the last workshop, the last How to Work with Interpreters workshop in August. There's some difficulty with our timing, but the focus groups are finished, and we're just wrapping up the workshops. So the focus groups were with community members to sort of learn from them, and the workshops are providing information and experiences for service providers. We've also had some community members and some volunteer seniors come to those workshops, which has been fabulous because it just raises awareness of the issues in wherever they go after they leave the workshop. But no, the focus groups are finished.
Okay, so it's great that community members and interested parties can attend this last workshop that's coming up. So if they did want to learn more about Project Wisdom, how could they go about doing that?
Right now, there's information on the Immigrant Services website, and so there's the website, and then they can also contact me directly. I have a phone number. At Immigrant Services, which is 519-836-2222, extension 257. So if anyone has any questions, they can feel free to give me a call, and I'm in the office Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays.
Okay. Well, the 18 months are almost over, and I really do hope that all the resources and everything that you've done in all the focus groups and the workshops, come to that fruition, and the materials are available out there, and the awareness is out there, and the change in people's the way that they relate to seniors and elder abuse and the cultural aspects of all of that are reached. And so what will be the plans for the future? Is there a future for Project Wisdom?
I certainly hope there's a future for Project Wisdom. One of the issues is with a project like this, you get it off the ground, you build momentum, and then you have to wait to find out if there's going to be more funding or not. So that's where we are right now. We have submitted a proposal and are hopeful that we will be funded to continue into the fall, but nothing is for sure yet. So at minimum, once this project is finished, this community resource will be available in 7 languages. So that's, let's see if I can remember them all. Hindi, Punjabi, Uzbek, Farsi, Arabic, Vietnamese, and written in simplified Chinese. So those will be available through Immigrant Services for hard copies. They're free for anyone who wants to pick them up and use them. And we're also going to have PDFs available from the Immigrant Services website. So if you access the website, you'll be able to download that. So that's something that will be there for people to access. The toolkit, which I'm writing up, which is targeted to service providers, and it's kind of it's the information from the workshops plus some additional information, some exercises and things. That's also going to be available on the website, so anyone who wanted to come to a workshop, couldn't make it, or anyone who went to a workshop and would like to just read it through again, or maybe see some of the additional stuff that I'm including, they can download that from the website as well. And because this is a federally funded project, we submit these things to Human Resources and Skills Development Canada, the New Horizons for Seniors program, and then that's available for anyone who wants to do a similar program anywhere across Canada to see what we did, see what worked for us. Some of my suggestions for improving the project if we were to do it again. Hindsight is always 20/20. And that's going to be available through New Horizons for Seniors.
So for the benefit of our listeners today, could you please tell us the Immigrant Services website?
Yes, it is www.is for Immigrant Services GW for guelphwellington.ca.
Okay, and I personally would like to know, you said you wrote a proposal for further funding, and would like to know what what plans would you have for Project Wisdom?
Well, that proposal is, I didn't write it myself. I can't take credit for that. That was Roya Rabbani, who is the Executive Director of Immigrant Services. That proposal was to move towards those seniors groups that I talked about. So the model is basically a self-help model to recruit volunteers from the community who speak different languages, who are members of different ethnocultural communities, different language communities, and to train them with the tools to start building their own groups, and then have some resources available to support them in doing that. So that's the proposal. That came out of research that I did across Canada. There's a lot of recognition that these kind of sort of self-help model groups are really empowering for people and really accomplish a lot with a little money. But we also have been really fortunate through Project Wisdom to have the advice of a group of seniors. We call them the Wisdom Committee. It's a diverse group of seniors who have been meeting with me throughout the project, giving advice about how to do various things throughout. And this is something that they've really supported. So it really came from them that, yes, we've done lots of great work in this phase to create resources, and we've done great work with service providers to create knowledge. But what we really need to do is get to the people and take this resource that we've done and not let it sit on the shelf. Bring it out to make those groups, bring it to those groups, and get it to people who need them. So that's what I hope we'll be able to do if we're funded for the next phase.
Wow, sounds like a very exciting time for our seniors, and I'm sure that they would appreciate all the work that you've done. And so we'd like to thank you very much today for joining us on another OIA radio show. And we really look forward to hearing the future of Project Wisdom, and we hope that you are successful in getting the funding to continue, and that you would be able to continue in the project as well. So thanks, Ella, and take care.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the project, and good luck with your show.
Dark is so much easier than to read.